not had dinner. No.
I also haven't had dinner. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, that surprised me. I was like, oh, we're starting. We're on YouTube.
This is the Hot Funny Meme Show.
Biawi!
Yes!
Do we have like a catchphrase yet?
Biawi.
It's Biawi! You're like, remember, we wrote that earlier in the writer's room.
It's like, you're embarrassing me.
You're pathetic. Hey, and we're back. So, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't seen the last episode, we discussed our top 5 comedic influences. It's down there somewhere.
Yeah, check it out.
And hopefully we heard back from you on your top 5 comedic influences. Looking forward to reading those.
We haven't read them yet.
We don't know.
So, anyway.
Today we're talking about someone real special. Who are we talking about today, Troy?
Well, it's one of the people that I listed as my most influential. Is this too silly? Should I change this?
It's a little silly.
Should we start again? Okay, starting again. So, my Dave Chappelle is the man of the hour.
The GOAT.
The GOAT.
That's right. Today we're talking about how we feel about that guy.
Well, and sort of like I guess the reason why we're wanting to talk about him is that he recently put out a comedy special, or he didn't call it a comedy special, just a special.
That's right.
And he's been doing this lately, and he's becoming something. He's transcending what a stand-up comedian is, I think.
Right.
But as part of that, the laughs have been a little few and far between. And that's a gripe, I suppose, that I have.
Right.
So that's what we're kind of going to get into today. I feel like you're on one side of this a little bit, and I'm on a different side of it. And I suppose today, like we've talked in our last episode about how like young Dave Chappelle to me is his stand-up specials, the two that we mentioned before, as what is it called?
Killing Them Softly.
Killing Them Softly.
And For What It's Worth.
And For What It's Worth, to my mind, are two of the best stand-up specials of all time. Pure comedy. As he's gotten older, he's become a wise, sage, old comedy sage, wise man. And that's...
Well, let's go through his other specials.
Sure,
because you think it stops there. So
I'm not sure I would say that.
Right.
Those are the peaks of the mountain for me.
Right. So what did he come back with? He had what was his first one that he came back?
Should we look it up?
Let's look it up. Let's not guess.
Stand-up specials. Yeah, he's like this brilliant. We didn't even talk about like how he's one of the most brilliant sketch comedic minds of all time too, in addition to being one of the great
Absolutely
stand-up comedians.
How much of Chappelle's show is Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say.
And how much of it is Neil Brennan?
I think a lot is Neil Brennan.
I think so too.
He's a brilliant comedic mind all on his own as well. Happy that he came out of the shadow of Dave Chappelle in the last
3 mics.
Yeah, 10 years or so. Yeah. It's good to see that. Here's the thing about Dave and about him and about a lot of comedians. I just love listening to Neil Brennan talk, like his podcast stuff.
I haven't heard it.
Like him on Joe Rogan, for instance, or him on his actual podcast. I haven't listened to much, but I love his appearances on other people's podcasts. He's just got like this great voice.
Neil Brennan is he's a comedic nerd.
Yeah.
He's a nerd for comedy.
Yeah.
He loves comedy, and he loves the kind of stuff that we're talking about is stuff that would be right up his alley.
Yeah.
Being the kind of the
breaking down of like
stuff.
What about it stuff. Is the timing and the structure. Yeah. Okay, so I got his specials right here. So in the year 2000,
Age of Spin,
it was Killing Them Softly.
Yeah.
Then it was 2004, For What It's Worth. 2017, The Age of Spin.
Got it.
2017, Deep in the Heart of Texas, Dave Chappelle live at Austin City Limits. Haven't seen that one. Oh, these are, maybe I have.
All on Netflix.
Yeah, 2017, Equanimity.
And then Bird Revelation.
Yeah, The Bird Revelation, Sticks and Stones.
And that's it.
And then we're getting into YouTube and
stuff.
Instagram specials. Dave Chappelle, 846, talking about George Floyd.
Yeah.
And then it was Unforgiven, which is talking about his interactions with Comedy Central about Chappelle's show and sort of that deal. And then the Redemption Song was sort of the result, the second half of Unforgiven, where he talks about the result of that. So what a gap, 2004 to 2017. Of course, there's the whole thing with Chappelle's show where goes to Africa, quits comedy and public life essentially for that whole time period, and sort of a great loss to the comedic world for that time.
Absolutely. How excited were you? So you've seen Age of Spin.
I don't know if I must have, but
his first special back.
I must have. I don't remember it though. I remember Equanimity, and I remember The Bird Revelation, and I remember Sticks and Stones.
Right.
And I've seen the YouTube and Instagram stuff, but
Age of Spin, he I think that's the one he has the stories about the guy, the glove doesn't fit, what's his name?
OJ
Simpson.
Oh yeah.
I believe that's the OJ Simpson one.
Okay, then
where he has the 5 stories about OJ Simpson.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was good. That was a good special.
Yeah, so that was I'm pretty sure that was the one. He's got a lot of trans jokes in there.
Right.
As well.
Right.
Pretty consistent these last five specials.
Right.
But we should cut that.
You're like, a lot of trans jokes. Maybe we should, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's start. So back from that is the one where he's talking about the 5 OJ stories. I seem to recall that now.
Right. Okay. So I, like I said on the last episode, watch For What It's Worth once a year. So he never left my mind.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle. And when this special was announced on Netflix, I couldn't have been more excited. Were you?
Same.
Did you feel the same way?
I was. Yeah, like I said, he's one of my most influential comedians. He's brilliant. The 2 best specials of all time. So it's like, yes, more Dave Chappelle.
Were you shocked physically?
Yeah.
Very shocked.
He had a physical transformation.
Absolutely.
He's buff.
I didn't like it.
Right, because he's a different guy.
Totally.
Like 12 years had gone by, and now he's super buff, and his voice is very deep now.
Yeah.
The smoking, I think, just
absolutely
took him to the.
I will say I love it when he's almost got like a Seinfeld voice now, where he can do his voice from his earlier specials. He'll now and again he'll tap into his old voice.
Yeah.
The one that comes to mind, where he talks about stuffing, eating the stovetop stuffing.
Okay.
Do you know this special?
I don't. Yeah. No.
And he does this thing where he's talking in his deep voice, and then he says, "I just wanted that goddamn stuffing," and it's like it's that high voice, Chappelle.
Yeah.
So he can dip into it, which is always fun. Whenever I hear it, it takes me back.
Yeah. Okay, so when do we get into I think here's my thesis here. I think that his younger self was him at his comedic peak for me.
Okay.
I think that the older that he's got, obviously he comes with more wisdom. He's experienced more. He has more of that, like I said, the wise old sage aspect to his comedy. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the time he is dropping wisdom on the audience, and it is part of the comedy. But when he's doing that, he's in that mode of like in the special, I think it's either Equanimity or The Bird Revelation. What's the one in the Comedy Store?
Bird Revelation.
So in that one, like for the last 15 minutes of that or 20 minutes of that, he's talking about the pimp story, right? Where he's going, and it's not funny, what he's saying, but it's interesting. He's like this incredible storyteller. Like just hearing him talk is like super interesting, but it's not funny. And then he'll go like when he makes the punchline, like he knows how to just, like you said, to pull out the voice, the intonation, the style of speaking that he knows will just get a laugh.
I think that, but I guess,
but he doesn't do it enough. Like I wish he did it more. That's my thesis.
I think that like he's always had that wisdom side in his comedy. If you go back and watch, not Killing Them Softly, but if you go back and watch For What It's Worth, there's a lot of,
it's profound.
Yeah, there's a lot of topics that are current.
Yeah.
Talking about race has been in his specials
for sure
from the get-go.
For sure. It's a big part of the comedy and the things that he's talking about.
Yeah,
for sure.
And obviously the Chappelle show too, right?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
He does it a lot more now. And I understand that kind of you just want to hear the jokes. Like you want to hear that Dave Chappelle.
He's and this is a point that you've sort of expressed to me about comedians and stuff, is where it's like it's a shame when a brilliant talent doesn't shine that brilliant talent upon the world, and like give us the like we want to see. It's like selfishly as fans, it's like I want to see Dave Chappelle just like knocking it out of the park the way that he did in those two specials. I don't know, maybe I'd have to go back and see. Maybe I'm misremembering or something, just like the rhythm of it. But it just feels like the later specials were more like, there's a lot of like, he really lets the audience calm down almost to like a simmer, and then he'll punctuate it with a joke.
Right.
Whereas in the early days, it felt like a more even, like,
Right.
He never lets the audience get down too softly. You know what I mean? He'll keep him at sort of a mid-level, hit him with a big joke, come back down to middle. Whereas like in these later specials, it's very like he'll bring it right back down. He'll just like stand on the speaker smoking a cigarette and like say nothing for a while. Let the audience get down to like a zero. I wonder if it's like a challenge for him that he's trying to like.
Well, that was a big Cosby move.
Oh,
Cosby sat down and all this, but like he was always very low.
Okay, yeah.
And obviously a big influence for Dave Chappelle.
And
there's a part of me that thinks that perhaps because he's at this like statesman like level of kind of of being a comedian now, like he's the top tier
and more than a comedian too.
Yeah, right. And so he has to do something that much different. I mean, you don't see other comedians in that kind of area do, like Seinfeld doesn't give wisdom. Do you know what I mean?
No.
He just does his thing. And he's certainly in that category of statesman-like comedians, right?
He's maybe arguably a Mount Rushmore, contender for, on the Mount Rushmore of comedians. That's a big Mount Rushmore though. But like I don't know who those would even be, but
if you picked four, I don't think Seinfeld would be on there. But if you had to pick four,
maybe not. Yeah. So anyway,
okay. So Unforgiven and Redemption Song. What was your takeaway?
Okay, so here's like, I think it's important to go from like, we went from like the highs of like young Dave. He goes away, he comes back. It's great to see him again. He's changed physically, and so here's the thing. I mean, it's not all of, but like a stand-up comedy's tools are his voice and his body and like his face, right? All of those, except for his face maybe, but even that, like as he filled out and got a little, he got stronger obviously, and like young Dave was just sort of this like very like thin guy with like, and his voice was very like, it was higher pitched,
Yeah.
And so all of the factors that was like, I love this Dave Chappelle, they were all different.
Right.
That's fine. Okay, he's still funny. He's still got it. He's making me laugh. I'm loving these specials. But they are a little different. And thereby just a little bit disappointed. Not his fault. I'm not blaming the guy for anything, but it is a little different. Then we get into, and listen, what we're going to get into next is like 846, which is the George Floyd thing. 2020 was a crazy year. And listen, I did not expect to laugh when I saw that, right? Again, it was profound. He leaned more into, so this new Dave has profound and humor sides to it, right? In his recent specials. This new Dave that we've seen in the last year, basically, has almost, it's like, now it's like a 90-10 split between 90% profound.
Yep.
Speaking for the voice of his community, right? And 10% he'll throw a little joke in there, here and there.
Right.
I don't blame him for doing that. I think with the kind of platform he has and the sort of the statesman-like position that he's in, as you know, he's a truly a great example in the Black community, and like so many people look up to him, and he's a voice for his community, and it's like great. I think he should be doing that. I guess my only point is like, and then he gets into now the next ones we're talking about his, you know, dealings with Comedy Central and that sort of thing. And the jokes are even fewer and farther between.
Right.
And then we're getting into like, and guess what? They gave me the rights to the show in his very latest one. And it's like, okay, great. Didn't laugh one time.
Right.
You know, I'm glad that you got the rights to your show back. I miss the Dave who had me in stitches, you know.
Right. But I mean, like, we're not calling these things
true
comedy specials.
They're not exactly comedy specials. They're sort of like informational drops.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
They're speeches.
What do you think of the Comedy Central?
Oh, well, you know, listen, I think there's two ways to look at it, I think. There's one side, which is the business, what do you call it, model of like a Comedy Central or any TV network is they're going to sign a bunch of different shows. They're going to pay them some money, but in return, they're going to keep the rights to the show in the event that when one of them pops off, like Chappelle's show did, they're going to, you know, pick up the back end from all of the money that they lost on the shows that didn't make it.
Yeah. The 20 or the 30 things that pilots that they spent millions for.
Yeah. And the thing is, and I don't even know if this is true in Dave's case necessarily, but a lot of like what you're exchanging is for the rights to the show is exposure and boosting your signal across like in a way that you couldn't do on your own. So, yeah.
I mean, he outright said it. That's an interesting point because he outright said in Unforgiven or one of these that he signed the deal because he had nothing.
Yeah.
He had a kid on the way. He didn't know what he was going to do with himself, right?
In a bad spot. Yeah.
He's in a bad spot, and he signed that deal in the desperation of it, right? So he was buying exposure.
Yeah.
He got that.
Yeah, and that show is a cultural landmark. Like it's one of the, if not arguably the most popular sketch shows of all time. Rick James, you know, like all of these iconic sketches came from that show. And so it's like you can't say that like he didn't benefit greatly from that deal that he made with them, right?
Right.
And then even what is it, the third season he was going to get paid $50 million.
Right.
So it's like he was going to get some compensation for that.
Yeah.
As far as like so all of the things I've said so far have been like, yeah, look, it's a fair deal. It's, you know, like he signed the contract, and that's sort of like the thing that people are saying. It's like he signed the contract, of course. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he really rallied his supporters to knock that thing down, and it worked.
Yeah. And listen, I'm like, sure, like I'm not Comedy Central. I'm not Dave Chappelle. I don't care. Like, sure, he's his show. Give him the show. He's not getting any money from it. Let's be real. Hopefully, Neil Brennan's getting some money from that too.
Oh, right. That's the first thing I thought when he says that
Neil Brennan's getting a little money.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. But yeah, like I don't have any ill will against the guy, but for getting what's his, but also
you just think he's headed in. And correct me if I'm wrong, but just to simplify it, so we can, I can have a. He's headed in the wrong direction, not the direction necessarily that you want him to head in, because he's going more into a profound philosophy level, and you'd like him to stick on the comedic side of it.
It's a disturbing trend in terms of as far as like the subjects of the things that he's talking about. Obviously, George Floyd. He said what needed to be said in that moment, and I think it was a great like healing thing for everybody.
Absolutely.
I don't want to like disparage the content of what he was talking about, because they're all like meaningful things to him.
But it's not just in those specials that you've seen it. You've actually seen it in the comedy specials, and that's where the gripe specials, is. Because it's in the comedy specials, which are supposed to be comedy. It's a little bit too much of this profound wisdom.
Yeah, it's just he's heading in that direction. Yeah. And I would like a more even split, or even a more leaning back to, like, it's not going to happen, where he goes back to, because he can't go back to like his young version of himself. Mm-hmm. I think for two reasons. One, like, it would be maybe inconsistent. Like, artists need to grow and they need to progress, and I think this is part of his progression. And like, who are we to say like go back to what you used to do?
So so if we talk about his last special, then being Sticks and Stones, I loved that special from the get go. I remember you being not so sold on it at the time. Maybe it's grown on you, but at the time you weren't necessarily so. And the biggest reason, I mean, other than it being funny. Yeah.
Now, correct, before we go on, is this the one where he's talking about like,
I will green jumpsuit?
And he's like, I reach into a bowl to pick out.
No.
Michael Jackson? That's what this last one, right? Where he's like talking about Michael Jackson, and he's making these he's defending positions that are hard to defend.
Yes. Yeah.
That was Sticks
the
and
green
Stones.
Green jumpsuit, and he's I can't remember if that had Michael Jackson in it. The accused, he was like, I don't believe these.
I remember.
Yeah.
These kids, yeah.
Yeah. So the reason, and I said it at the time, but the reason that I thought this special was so important, and it's not surprising to me that it won the award, was because he was doing what needed to be injected into comedy, but everyone was too scared to do it.
Right.
Which is someone who can't really be canceled, putting it all out there and joking about the things that he wants to joke about. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily like, or is it punching down? You could make an argument, but but it's what he wants to joke about. It's his audience.
Yeah.
His show. He's joking about it. Yeah. Right. And for me, that hasn't, since like Lenny Bruce, it hasn't been necessary because comedians have had a pretty good track record, like a pretty good chunk of time where they've just been allowed to do things and no one got offended.
Yeah.
Lenny Bruce kicked down the door stayed open. And then over the last 5 years, it started to close again. Like, you can't joke about this, you can't do this.
The woke thing, pushing back on that, like, you can't, basically mandating that there are things you simply cannot joke about.
Right.
And he's pushing against that.
And for me, I think that he is the most important voice in comedy now because, and that special really kind of like shined a light on this because he's trying to kick that door back open for everybody.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. You saw like Bill Burr's Paper Tiger came out like a month after that, and he was trying to do the exact same thing. Like, not, unauthentically, but you could tell that he had there was courage in what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
And so for that reason, even though he's being a little bit more profound, a lot of the profound speech that he's talking about is important for comedy on the landscape.
Yeah.
For me.
I agree. Yeah, I don't have I agree that like he's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that regard, along with Bill Burr, like you said. That's a great special too. They're both great specials. He's one of the. I mean, this is a whole other question, but like, who's the best doing it today, 2021? He's up there. Dave Chappelle is up there for sure. Maybe I would say he's no longer, and this might be a controversial statement, but like, I don't think he's the best anymore. I think he was the best, and I think he's moving in this direction of like almost away from comedy entirely, where it's almost like, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov like vacating the title, like he just wants to go do something else or something. But that's what it feels like to me. Like he's not maybe as interested in big laughs or making the crowds.
But did you
laugh,
feel that
you know?
Do you think you felt that in Sticks and Stones?
Kinda.
Really?
Moving in that direction, right? Like it's ticks in the direction of I'm a statesman. I'm less of a listen. The guy is a genius. He knows how to make people laugh, which means he's making the choice to not do that.
Right.
For big chunks of his specials, it seemed, you know, in exchange for being profound. And like this is a lot of what his in-person, his live stand-up shows, from what I've heard, are, where he'll just sit on a bench and talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And there's really not a joke, but when like he's building up to a punchline that maybe he doesn't even know when it's coming, but when it comes, it slams the audience and they're laughing for like 3 minutes in a row, you know. But also it's 3 hours of just watching him smoke and talk. And to me, like, I get it. For the guy who's done it all and who has accomplished everything, I could see the appeal of sort of challenging yourself and just sort of doing what you want. Just like, screw it. I do what I want.
Yeah.
You know, no one is my boss. I sit here and I talk and I expound and I smoke and that's who I am and all that. And I'm like, full power to you. Great. I know that when an official Dave comedy special comes out on Netflix, one that he's put a lot of time and effort into crafting, I know it's going to be good and I know it's going to be funny. But it almost seems with his current things that he's putting out, like maybe he's less interested in that sort of performance, and he's more interested in more of a statesman, wise man, speaking for his community sort of stuff, which is, you know, to that I say good on him for doing what he wants to do, if that's what he wants to do, which obviously it is. But for me, I miss the belly laughs of early Dave.
Straight jokes.
The straight, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my whole thesis. I think, Dave, you're one of the greats. I love you.
You think he's going to watch this?
And I know that he will watch this. And thank you for subscribing, Dave. That's a big get for us. So. Yeah.
To endorse us like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dave.
If you really love it, don't say anything about us on your next special. That's how we'll know.
That's how we'll know. Yeah.
Watched it.
That you love us.
Keep it. You know. I'll give you my closing statement. Is that I think that it's a necessary thing that he's doing. He has to, because he's fixing comedy. For me, because he's finding a way to fix comedy, he can't just run joke after joke after joke. He has to talk about it and he has to get serious. Okay, yeah. Because that's part of the healing process. If he just did jokes and jokes and jokes, but he was still as edgy as I want him, it would come across as there'd be no explanation behind it, and it would come across as just being arrogant and mean. Okay, right. So I think he needs that profoundness built into it to sell these because these are hard ideas. They're ideas that we should know, but they're hard lessons to learn now. He's unteaching some bad habits, and it requires a little bit of that. And the sacrifice, it might not be a sacrifice for him, but the sacrifice is he has to put a little bit more time into talking in this profound way, and he can't do all the jokes that he wants to. Because I don't think that he's short of jokes. I think he could fill a thing with jokes if he wanted to, right? So, which is what you said. He's doing what he wants. It's not an accident. Right?
Yeah, so one of his jokes was, I forget the special, but he's like, I'm so good at comedy, I can pick a word, pick a punchline out of a jar and make a joke around that and make it funny. And then like at the end of the special, he
kick him in the... Yeah, that's right.
I'm not Dave Chappelle. I can't,
I can't say that. It's like we're fixing comedy right now with the word.
Yeah. Yeah. Go watch the special.
Go watch all the specials.
But before I just like want to put a exclamation part, because I think you sort of like changed my mind a little bit, that like the idea that he's tackling the weight of the ideas that he's tackling requires more subtlety and more of what he's doing now, maybe than what he was doing before, which is an idea I hadn't really considered much. And I was just like, give me the, give me the laughs, give me all the like the funny everything. So
I think the what he's doing is so dangerous.
Yeah.
That most comedians would not dare to touch this material or say these things.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's making a statement. It's the joke itself, the fact that he's allowed to have those opinions, and they're jokes. The fact that he's saying things that are really edgy, and this culture has decided you're not allowed to joke about. He can do the joke, but then he has to dedicate a chunk of time into talking about, and you see a lot of that in Bird Revelation, where he'll say a thing and then he'll go into like, my ancestors were slaves, like this, and he talks about this. He's like, no, I'm helping you to understand like why I'm saying these kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the episode, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. In the comments, let us know what your favorite Dave Chappelle joke is, or his favorite special. Let us know if you hate him. We want to get some feedback. We want to know, whose side are you on? Are you on Nick's side? Loves Dave Chappelle, thinks he's the best, loves everything he does.
Or on my side, and you also love Dave Chappelle and everything he does. Let us know in the comments below. Yeah, if you have any other suggestions for like things you like about this or things you don't like, it's all helpful to us. So absolutely leave the thumbs up or down, or the positive or negative comment below, and we will change to suit whatever you want, because we are masters.
And do not forget to subscribe. New videos coming quick.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Nick, do you ever wonder how many cupcakes it would take to kill a dog?
I've tried this.
How many times?
I've tried it. Well, I did, because I didn't want to. I killed the first dog. Yeah. It was 4, but I was like, that could just be a fluke. Yeah. So I killed 6 other dogs.
Just to find out.
And it's 4. Yeah, 4 cupcakes.
And they were all chocolate cupcakes.
Yes, chocolate cupcakes. I cut the dog open and stuffed it. It turns out its organs can't take chocolate.